And now a Norwegian story entitled The Three Brothers. A man had 3 sons, Per, Paul, and Espen Asklad. He was as poor as a church mouse. All he had were his 3 sons. Often he tried to persuade them to leave home and go elsewhere to earn a living. "There isn't anything here for you," he explained, "except hard work and no reward." Some distance away from the poor man's croft there was a prosperous farm which belonged to the king. Unfortunately, in front of the farmhouse there was a huge oak tree which had grown so tall and broad that it shut out the light from the king's windows. The king had offered a large sum of money to anyone who would chop the oak tree down. Many men had tried, but they'd all failed, because as soon as they cut out one chip of the trunk, 2 others grew in its place. The king was anxious also to open a spring on his land, so he could enjoy a fresh supply of water, even in the driest weather. All the neighbouring farms had good springs, and the king felt ashamed that he had to depend on them for water. He offered wealth and riches to whoever would dig a spring for him, but no one had been able to do this, either because the farm was on top of a rocky hill. When a man began to dig, he would strike hard rock only a few inches below the surface. Per, Paul, and Espen Asklad heard of the king's promise. They were 3 strong lads accustomed to hard work, at least the 2 older boys were. Espen was a dreamer. But they asked themselves, why shouldn't they try? Their father warned them that many strong lads had failed, but he allowed them to go because he thought anything was better than staying at home to starve. They set out together. Per and Paul were both very practical lads. They shook their heads when they looked at Espen. "We don't think you've got much of a hope of succeeding," they said, "but if you want, you can come along for the trip." After walking for a while, they came to a slope, overgrown with pine trees. Above the slope was the peak of a hill, showing stark and spare. As they were making their way through the trees, they heard the sound of chopping. "I wonder what that is?" asked Espen. "You're always wondering," said Per and Paul. "What's so odd about hearing a woodman at work?" "Nothing," said Espen, "but I think I'll go and see exactly what's happening," and off he went. "If you're foolish enough to make a long journey longer by turning off the path, that's your lookout," said the brothers, calling after him. Espen took no notice, but climbed up the hill, trying to trace the sound. Before long he saw an axe working on its own and cutting down a pine tree. A swathe of cut trees lay all around. "Good day," said Espen. "I see you've been very busy." "I have," answered the axe. "I've been busy for a long time, waiting for somebody to come." "Well, I'm here now," said Espen, and he took hold of the axe, removing the head from the handle, and put the pieces into the pack he carried on his back, and then he hurried down the hill to join his brothers. They were teasing him, asking, "Did you see any wonders up there on the hill?" "Only an axe," answered Espen. They walked on a few more kilometres and then came to a steep rock. There was a regular knocking sound coming from somewhere high on the rock. "I wonder what that is," mused Espen. "Wondering again?" laughed Per and Paul. "It's probably a woodpecker tapping at a tree." "Probably," agreed Espen, "but I'd like to see for myself," and once again his brothers laughed at him, but he took no notice. He climbed up the rock and saw a pickaxe digging a hole. "Good day," said Espen. "I see you're busy digging, all on your own." "Yes," agreed the pickaxe. "I've been digging for a long time, waiting for someone to come." "Well, here I am," said Espen. And he lifted the pickaxe, took the shaft away from the head and put the pieces in his pack, and then he hurried after his brothers. "Expect you saw something startling up there," his brothers plagued him. "Not really," said Espen. "Only a pickaxe." They went on for many more kilometres. They were glad when they came to a stream, because they were very thirsty after hours of walking. They lay down by the side of the stream and drank the sparkling fresh water. "I wonder where this water comes from," murmured Espen. "Are you losing your senses?" asked Per and Paul. "Don't you know that water comes from the earth?" "Yes, I do," said Espen, "but I'd like to find the exact spot that it comes from." His brothers laughed and laughed at him, but in spite of their mocking, Espen set off to find the source of the stream. He followed it as it became smaller and smaller, and it became so small that it was only a trickle, but still he persisted, and at last he saw a big walnut. The water was bubbling out of the walnut. "Good day," said Espen. "I see you're bubbling very cheerfully as you start your journey." "Yes," said the stream. "I've been bubbling a long time, waiting for someone to come." "Well, I'm here now," said Espen, and he took a bit of moss and pushed it into the hole from which the water bubbled. The stream stopped running. He He put the walnut into his pack and raced after his brothers. "Did you find the source of the stream?" laughed Per. "It must have been a marvellous sight," mocked Paul. "It was only running out of a hole," said Espen. Once again the two brothers had a good laugh, but Espen didn't care. "I enjoyed seeing it," he answered. The three brothers trudged on, and at last they came to the king's farm. The king was fed up with the long list of people who tried to win the reward but had failed to chop down the tree or dig the well. He wasn't pleased to see Per, Paul and Espen. "I must warn you," he said, "that from now on anyone who tries and fails will have his ears cut off and be exiled from this country." Per and Paul didn't mind about the penalty. They were very confident that they would succeed at such a simple task. Per tried first because he was the eldest. He tried hard. He chopped at the tree until the sweat dripped off his nose and ran from his forehead into his eyes, and when he was exhausted he had to give up. But he hadn't chopped the tree down. The king's servants took him away. They chopped off his ears and sent him away to live on a lonely island. Paul tried next. He worked hard right through the day, but the more he chopped, the more the tree grew. At last he fell to the ground. He'd used all his strength. His ears were chopped off, and he was sent after his brother to the island. Espen Askeladd was the last to try. "If you're so anxious to look like your brothers," said the king, "come, let us cut your ears off at once, and save time and effort." "If you please, I'd like to attempt the tasks first," he answered. Well, he was allowed to try. He took the pieces of axe from his pack and put them together. "Cut and chop," he said, and at once the axe set to work. It worked faster than the tree could grow, and it didn't get tired. Before very long the huge oak tree was lying on the ground. After this, Espen took the pieces of the pickaxe and fixed them back together. "Dig and delve," he said. The pickaxe began to dig, throwing up earth and stones until it had dug a huge hole deep enough for a well. When that was done, Espen took the walnut from his pocket, pushed it into the corner of the well, and after taking away the moss, he said, "Bubble and flow." The water bubbled from the nut, and soon the well was full. So, Espen successfully accomplished all the tasks. The king was delighted. Not only did he give Espen the reward he'd promised, but he gave him his daughter for a wife and half his kingdom as well. Espen fetched his poor old father to live with him and brought Per and Paul back from the lonely island they were living on, and they learned that wondering and finding out can often bring greater rewards than hard work that has no thought behind it.